On today's show, we take a look at LSU sports.
And some Mississippi State action. We'll take you through the history of the LSU Bulldogs rivalry in preparation for Saturday's game. And Josh Nix stops by the set to give us his Nix Picks.
So get on the edge of your seat and put on your rally cap because it's the bottom of the ninth and it starts right now. Welcome to the bottom of the ninth. I'm Alex Chaney.
And I'm Patrick Clay. Thanks for tuning in. For the next 15 minutes, we'll give you your LSU sports update and preview the weekend in LSU sports. And Alex, speaking of the weekend in LSU sports, got a big game this weekend.
Absolutely.
LSU's bouncing back from their loss against Georgia, but, you know, Mississippi State, you can't take them lightly.
No, Mississippi State is always a very surprising team in the SEC. You know, usually you kind of don't think of them too highly, but then they can come right out and have a great team.
And they're consistent. You know, they'll start off pretty strong and and it's never a blowout for LSU. No. It's especially in the past couple of years. LSU may have dominated the series, but it seems like they always keep it competitive.
Mississippi State really always every year looks forward to the game against LSU. They really always come out firing, and they do give LSU a great game every year.
Well, speaking of that, you know, like we mentioned, LSU is looking to rebound from their first loss of the season against Georgia as they travel to Starkville this weekend to take on Mississippi State. Now, it's hard to call this a rivalry because LSU has won 21 of the last 22 meetings. But let's take a look at some of the recent matchups between the Tigers and the Bulldogs. Had some good games. Alex, what do we got here?
In 2009, number 7 LSU taking on an unranked Mississippi State team and safety Chad Jones.
In the fourth quarter, taking it 93 yards. Crazy. Now, Chad Jones went on he was in the NFL for a little while. Now he's a pitcher for the Braves. How about that?
Cincinnati Reds, actually.
This is, correct.
He's a relief pitcher. And this classic Patrick Peterson with the windmill.
The windmill, bringing it
home. Along with the final block.
Final block.
93-yard touchdown score.
Final score, 30-26 LSU. Now, in 2011, it was number 3 LSU versus number 25 Mississippi State. It's a slugfest, just one touchdown. This is the closest that anyone played LSU that year besides Bama. How about that?
Really incredible game. I mean, this is right after that big win against Oregon. Then playing on a Thursday on the road with the Cowbells.
And they kept it consistent. And you see here, current Seattle Seahawks, Spencer Ware running it up. Final 19-6. And now 2012, number 9 LSU versus number 22 Mississippi State. Remember, Mississippi State started 7-0 that year and had a 7-0 lead, but it was all LSU.
But their dream came to die in
Tiger Stadium. Jarvis Landry getting the touchdown, defense making plays. It was a great game. Final score, LSU 37-17. So LSU will look to keep their 13-game winning streak over the Bulldogs alive this Saturday.
Kickoff is set for 6 p.m. on ESPN.
Well, coming up after the break, Josh Nix is here to give us his Week 4 edition of Nix Picks.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the show, and right now I'd like to invite our good friend Josh Nix to give us his Week 5 edition of Nix Picks. Josh, I can't believe we're already this far into the season.
I know, 4 weeks through. There's a lot of 4-0 teams, so we're going to be going in to get those games in a little bit.
Absolutely. So how'd you do last week, Josh?
2-2 straight up. 1-2-1 against the spread Seattle game. Seattle won by 3. They were a 3-point favorite, but we'll do better this week.
Slipping a little bit.
A little roadblock here, but we'll get through it.
Every great team knows how to move on and recover. Exactly. So let's get right to it. Moving on to the first game, throwback Thursday, we got a rematch of the 2006 NFC Championship game. Josh, why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, the Saints take their perfect 4-0 record to Soldier Field this Sunday to take on the Bears. The Saints pulled off one of their typical Monday Night Football routes at home against the Dolphins last week. Saints passing game exploded and their defense was all over Tannehill. Meanwhile, the Bears defense struggled last week in a loss at Detroit. However, I still think the Bears front 7 will dominate this game. I think they're going to put pressure on Drew Brees. New Orleans' offensive line is the weak point of that team. They will also struggle to run the ball against Chicago. I think the Bears will succeed at running the ball with Matt Forte and keeping New Orleans' offense on the sidelines long enough. Saints also have a short week following the Monday night game. That can affect things at times. I like the Bears in this game as home underdogs, 27-23.
This is the first time you're picking the Saints to lose this year, but Sean Payton's Saints have never won at Soldier Field.
That is another good point. Now, it is October, so the weather is a little warmer than it has been previous years, but I think it's a tough matchup. Saints, even though they're 4-0, I'm still a little hesitant on them. Their offensive line has looked shaky, but we'll see what happens.
Even with the Bears, how much their defense was exploited against the Lions, gave up so many points. You don't think Drew Brees could do that? Yes,
but Saints offensive line's in worse shape right now than Detroit's. I really don't like it. And their tackle, Zach Strief, I don't know how he's still starting, to be honest with you. So that's not good when you're facing Julius Peppers, so we'll see what happens.
All right, Josh. Well, how about some interconference action? What do you have for us?
We have another undefeated matchup here. Undefeated team, as the Seahawks, who are undefeated at 4-0, head to Indy to take on a 3-1 Colts team that has looked very impressive in back-to-back road wins. So far, Trent Richardson trade has worked out for both teams so far. I still can't say enough for what the Colts did in San Francisco 2 weeks ago. They dominated that game. They also did a nice job of avoiding a letdown from that game last week by pummeling the helpless Jags. The mere presence of Richardson has helped an already potent passing attack. Colts defense is also stepping up. Their front seven is stuffing the run this year. Despite the quarterbacks in this game and the talent both teams have on offense, I think this is going to be more of a defensive game. The Colts struggle to block at times. Seattle struggled for much of last week despite winning. They're not quite as dominant on the road as they are at home. They can't afford to fall behind in this game because I don't think Andrew Luck will throw the game away like Schaub did. I think this one will be close, and I think Andrew Luck pulls it out with the big late game drive. I like the Colts to hand the Seahawks their first loss of the year, 20-17.
I think fantasy owners of Andrew Luck would like to hear that because he's been all right this season, just putting up consistent numbers, but nothing flashy like he was doing last year.
He's been decent. Now, if you drafted in earlier rounds, you could have gotten a better team around him. So Luck's 19, 20 points a game would work out. You might want to hold that off for a week, though. Luck might not do too much against Seattle, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's a very strong, especially with Richard Sherman and that defense.
Yes, that's a great defense.
Showed it against the Texans. Well, the surprisingly undefeated Chiefs are taking on another surprise in the 3-1 Titans. Josh, we never would have seen this coming.
No, absolutely not. Although this isn't a highly hyped matchup, we have a good game in Nashville here. The Chiefs' defense has looked phenomenal so far this year. They've made a lot of big plays, which has been key in supporting an offense that typically they can move the ball, but they're not great for carrying the load for a championship team. They need some help. The Titans have made similar strides this year defensively. Their secondary looks totally different this year, and the addition of Bernard Pollard has paid off so far. It's very unfortunate for the Titans that Jake Locke got hurt. He was playing great football before a hip injury will have him sidelined for 4 to 6 weeks. With Ryan Fitzpatrick taking over for Locker, I think the Chiefs can focus on shutting down Chris Johnson and make Fitzpatrick win the game. I think that plan succeeds, and I like the Chiefs to stay undefeated, 24-16 over the Titans.
It's really amazing to see how far Fitzpatrick has fallen. He was the starting quarterback for the Bills, 3-0. They had just beaten the Patriots, and now he's the backup for the Titans. But this might be his chance to shine.
Yeah, he struggled for the Bills after starting out hot, but the Bills don't have a great team around him. You might do a little better with Tennessee. Their offensive line has improved, but I don't know. Locker was playing great football, and I think that will affect the Titans a little bit. Maybe
he'll get a chance to pull a Matt Flynn and become a starter somewhere else.
Exactly, as long as it doesn't end up in Oakland.
Exactly. Finally, the defending NFC champion 49ers take on the now reeling Houston Texans. Josh, who do you think?
Before the season started, this looked like a potential Super Bowl preview. That looks very questionable, however, as of right now, as both teams are having issues. The Texans blew a 20-3 lead last week versus Seattle. I thought Kubiak's play call on the game-time pick six was horrendous, and Schaub made an equally awful decision to throw that up for grabs, especially in Richard Sherman's direction. The 49ers are dealing with off-the-field issues with 2012 All-Pro Aldon Smith sidelined indefinitely with legal problems. Teams have also seemed to figure out how to defend the Niners' read option, as defenders have had Kaepernick and their running backs confused all year. The lack of wide receivers also doesn't help for the 49ers. The 49ers, however, did rebound with a huge win over the Rams last week. While they're playing a much better team this week, I think the Niners keep it up. I think they make some big plays versus Schaub and Houston's offense. I like the Niners in a slugfest, low-scoring game, 16-13 over Houston.
All right, Josh. Well, hopefully this week you can bounce back a little bit.
We need to bounce back.
We need to bounce back. We'll see what happens. But as always, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Always. All right. Well, coming up after the break, Alex and I have a fever, and we'll let you know what it is.
Welcome back to the show. This weekend, LSU takes on Mississippi State in Starkville, and your boys at the bottom of the ninth are making the trip.
Yes, the grueling 4-hour trip all the way up to Stark Vegas.
Whoa, you feeling all right?
Yeah, man, I think I need to go to the doctor or something.
I think I know just the prescription.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
I got a fever. The land of the cowbell should be interesting.
Well, if you want to keep up with our adventures in Starkville, follow the hashtag at the bottom of the screen.
There it is.
Hashtag VOTN Stark Vegas.
Stark Vegas, baby. We're making plays,
We'll
making it rain.
update you on weather conditions, road conditions, the songs we're listening to on the way there.
Everything and anything you'll ever want to know.
If we take a bathroom break, I mean,
pit stops and
it could happen.
it could get weird. Well,
Well, that's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in to the bottom of the ninth on Tiger TV Sports Showtime. You can watch highlights and full episodes online at tigertv.tv.
also, don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for all the latest news. We're here on Campus Channel 75, Monday through Thursday from 6 to 6:15.
If you're traveling to Stark Vegas this weekend
Like
for the
we are.
game, please drive safely. For Patrick Clay, I'm Alex Cheney. Thank you for watching in the bottom of the ninth, and you stay classy, Baton Rouge.